A $400 drone built on a garage workbench destroys a $4.5 million tank. The exchange rate, 11,250 to 1. That number is not a fluke. It's the new arithmetic of modern war. Today we're breaking down the drone versus tank math, where it came from, why it works, and what America is doing about it. Because here's the twist. The same math that kills tanks is now being turned against the drones themselves, and the country that masters this equation first wins the next war before it starts. So, is the tank actually dead? Stay to the end. The real answer surprised us. Start with the weapon itself, because it shouldn't be possible. An FPV drone first-person view is essentially a racing quadcopter. 4 motors, a battery, a camera on the nose that streams live video to a pilot wearing goggles a few miles away. The pilot sees what the drone sees. He flies it as if he's in the cockpit, through windows, down trenches, into the weak top armor of a vehicle. Strap a warhead to the frame and the toy becomes a precision-guided munition. Total parts cost somewhere between $200 and $500. Call it $400, the going rate in a volunteer workshop. Every component exists because of hobbies. The motors were built for drone racing, the camera for sports footage. The radio link, the flight controller, the battery, all of it commercial, all of it stocked in online warehouses by the million. The only military part is the warhead. That detail is the entire revolution, and we'll come back to it. The target, a modern main battle tank. Take the T-90M Russia's frontline armor, composite protection, explosive reactive armor, a price tag around $4.5 million. Decades of engineering, the steel fist of 20th century land power. Divide one number by the other and you get the ratio that has procurement officers losing sleep. 11,250 drones for the price of one tank. Now, a fair objection. One drone doesn't equal one dead tank. Against a moving target, with electronic jamming trying to cut the video link, an FPV might connect maybe 3 times in 10. Against stationary targets, more like 5 or 6 in 10. Real war is messy. Batteries die, links drop, operators miss. Skeptics love pointing this out, and they're right as far as it goes. So run the honest math, misses included. If it takes 3 or 4 drones to land one hit, the expected cost to take a multi-million-dollar tank out of the fight lands around $1,300. $1,300 for a machine that costs $4.5 million. Even if you triple the drone's price and halve its hit rate, the ratio stays so lopsided that the conclusion doesn't move. That's the mark of a real revolution. The math survives every reasonable adjustment you throw at it. That's not an advantage, that's a broken market. And in war, broken markets don't stay secret. We break down one piece of military engineering like this every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. To feel how strange this moment is, rewind the last 80 years of military logic. Since World War II, the Western way of war has followed one direction. Fewer things, better things, pricier things. Precision beat mass. A single guided weapon could do what 1,000 dumb bombs couldn't. So budgets chased precision, and precision compounded. Jets gained sensors, stealth, software. Tanks gained composite armor, thermal sights, computerized fire control. Every generation of hardware cost multiples of the last, and for decades the bargain held. Expensive worked. Small, exquisite forces demolished large, cheap ones, the lesson every military planner absorbed and every budget enshrined. The American arsenal became a collection of masterpieces, aircraft costing more than their weight in gold, ships budgeted like cities, each platform so capable and so costly that losing even one was a national event. Quality had beaten quantity so many times in a row that the West quietly concluded the argument was over. But that logic carried a hidden assumption. Precision had to stay expensive. Guidance, optics, stabilized flight that was aerospace-grade wizardry, affordable only to nations. Then the smartphone happened. Your phone contains for a few $100s the components that once made a guided weapon costly. Gyroscopes, accelerometers, GPS chips, high-resolution cameras, radio links, powerful processors. Each of those, a generation ago, was a line item in a missile program worth more than a house. The consumer electronics industry spent 20 years mass-producing precision for racing hobbyists, for wedding photographers, for kids. It drove the cost of guidance down a curve no weapons lab could have funded on purpose. Nobody in a defense ministry set out to make guided weapons cheap. The global economy did it as a side effect, one Christmas shopping season at a time. The FPV drone is simply the moment someone connected consumer precision to a warhead. The 80-year link between precise and expensive, the assumption underneath every Western arsenal snapped. Here's where the story stops being about gadgets and becomes about industry. By late 2025, Ukrainian production of FPV drones had scaled past 50,000 a month. Much of it came from garages, small workshops, and volunteer centers, not defense conglomerates, not decade-long procurement programs, soldering irons, 3D printers, and off-the-shelf parts, assembled by ordinary people at kitchen table scale, then multiplied by thousands of kitchens. Do the daily arithmetic on that. 50,000 a month is more than 1,600 precision weapons per day, a flow of guided munitions that would have staggered any 20th century superpower coming out of spare rooms. And because the design is modular and simple, the production line is unkillable. Destroy a factory and you've destroyed a building. The knowledge, the parts channels, and the 10,000 workbenches remain. Compare the two production pipelines, because the contrast is the whole story. A main battle tank takes years to build and costs millions in a factory that can be found and struck. An FPV drone takes an afternoon and costs less than a rent payment in 10,000 rooms nobody can target. One pipeline replaces losses in years, the other replaces them by Tuesday. Military theorists have a saying, quantity has a quality all its own. The FPV revolution updates it. Quantity with precision is a quality no armor has ever faced. A tank on a modern battlefield isn't dodging one clever missile. It's facing a continuous, replaceable $500 swarm that never runs out. And here's the number that shows what that pressure does over time. Open-source analysts at Oryx count only losses they can verify with photographs, so the true figure runs higher. Even so, they documented more than 3,000 Russian tanks destroyed, damaged, or captured in the first 2.5 years of the full-scale war. 3,000 tanks is not a dent in an inventory. It's the armored strength of several entire armies gone. Tens of billions of dollars of hardware, much of it traded against munitions costing less than a used car. No arsenal on Earth can bleed at that exchange rate and shrug. Not Moscow's, not Beijing's, not ours. For perspective, take America's premier tank killer, the Javelin missile. A marvel fire and forget, top attack, combat proven. It also costs roughly 445 times more than an FPV drone doing the same job. The Javelin is a better weapon. It is not 445 times better. And in a long war, that gap is the whole ballgame. Now flip to the other side of the ledger, because the same math attacks defenders too. And this is where it gets genuinely scary for the big-budget military. Consider the Shahed, the long-range one-way attack drone, plywood and fiberglass simplicity, a lawnmower growl, unit cost around $35,000. Analysts' estimates run from 20 to 80,000, but take the midpoint. It flies for hours at the speed of a small private plane, low and dumb and straight. It is slow, it is crude, it cannot dodge, cannot fight back, cannot even see. Air defenses intercept the overwhelming majority, often around 90%. By every traditional measure of a weapon, it's a joke, which is exactly the point. The Shahed was never designed to be good. It was designed to be cheap enough to waste and to make stopping it more expensive than launching it. Sounds like the defense is winning, right? Now price the victory. A Patriot PAC-3 Interceptor, the gold standard, costs between $3.7 and $5.2 million. Fire one at a $35,000 drone and you've spent up to 149 times the target's value to kill it. A NASAMS Interceptor runs over $1 million, call it 30-plus-to-1. As one analysis put it bluntly, firing such a missile at a cruise missile is cost-effective. Using it on a cheap one-way drone burns over $600,000 of value per shot, so the attacker's strategy writes itself. You don't need your cheap drones to get through. You need the defender to keep shooting gold at plywood. Launch $30,000 targets by the hundreds, and even a 90% kill rate means the defender's magazine and budget drains faster than yours. Factoring interceptions, each drone that does strike cost the attacker maybe $350,000, still a bargain against million-dollar interceptors and billion-dollar infrastructure. This is the defender's dilemma of the new math. Every engagement won at 149-1 is a small strategic defeat. Win every battle this way, and you lose the war by invoice, and it compounds. Interceptor production lines run in years, drone production lines run in weeks. So the defender isn't just losing money per engagement, he's spending down a magazine that refills slowly against a threat that refills constantly. The math doesn't need to breach the defenses today. It just needs the defender's stockpile and budget to break first. If this breakdown is earning its minutes, subscribe. Tomorrow's video is another piece of the new arsenal. For a while, that dilemma looked unsolvable. Then engineers did what engineers do. They attacked the cost curve itself. If the problem is million-dollar missiles killing $1,000 drones, the answer isn't a better million-dollar missile, it's a cheaper bullet. Ukrainian firms started building Interceptor drones, small, fast, autonomous, designed to do exactly one thing: run down attack drones and kill them for pocket change. Look at what these interceptors actually are, because the engineering is beautiful in its restraint. No warhead the size of a refrigerator, no radar worth millions, a fast airframe, a seeker good enough to find a slow plywood target, and just enough bang to break it. Everything expensive was engineered out. The designers asked one question the old defense industry never had to ask: what is the absolute minimum machine that kills this specific threat? Then they built exactly that, and nothing more. The numbers landed like a thunderclap. One fixed-wing autonomous interceptor design brings down Shahed-class drones for about $3,500 a kill. A quadcopter interceptor called Sting does similar work for around $2,100. Read those against the old ledger. The defense just went from $5 million per kill to the price of a used motorcycle. The asymmetry flipped back. A $35,000 attack drone now dies to a $2,000 defender, and suddenly the attacker is the one losing $17 for every one the defender spends. Same physics, same sky, opposite economics. And that reveals the deeper law underneath this whole story, the thing to actually take away tonight. There is no permanent winner in the cheap precision era. There is only the side that reprices faster. Weapon, counter-weapon, counter-counter-weapon. Each cycle now runs in months, not decades. The parts come from the same consumer supply chains. The designs iterate at software speed. Victory belongs to whoever treats the battlefield like a market and out-innovates the exchange rate, which raises the trillion-dollar question. The nation with the biggest defense budget on Earth built that budget on exquisite, expensive things. What is America doing about the new math? The Pentagon noticed. Slowly at first, then with money. The headline effort is called Replicator, a Defense Department initiative with a mission statement that reads like an admission. Field autonomous systems, in the Pentagon's words, at a pace and scale that overwhelms adversaries. Not a handful of perfect machines, masses of good enough ones. For an institution that spent 50 years perfecting the exquisite, that sentence is a doctrinal earthquake. The money followed. For fiscal year 2026, the Department of Defense allocated $13.4 billion to artificial intelligence and autonomous systems. That's part of a broader autonomy bet analysts tally at more than $50 billion. Cheap cruise missiles, autonomous surface boats, loitering munitions weapons that circle overhead and wait for a target, drone interceptors, software that lets one operator command dozens of machines instead of one. Notice what this really is, though, because it's bigger than any single program. It's America doing the thing America has historically done best, recognizing an industrial warfare shift and outscaling it. This channel has told this story before, in other centuries. When war demanded ships faster than an enemy could sink them, American industry delivered a ship in under 5 days. When war demanded proximity fuses by the million, radio factories delivered 70,000 a day. The weapon changes. The move mobilized the industrial base around the new math is the same move. The honest caveat: it's hard. Procurement systems built for decade-long programs don't pivot easily to weapons that iterate every 6 months. A requirements document takes longer to approve than an FPV design takes to become obsolete. Testing standards written for $100 million aircraft strangle $500 airframes in paperwork. And the defense industry's business model, few units, high margins, long contracts, is the exact inverse of the garage economy it now has to beat. The Pentagon's challenge isn't inventing the cheap swarm, it's learning to buy like a garage and scale like a superpower at the same time. That not any single drone is the real arms race of this decade, and it's a race with real adversaries. Other nations read the same battlefield data America does, and mass production of cheap precision plays to the strengths of exactly the rivals America worries about most. The side that treats this as tomorrow's problem will meet it as yesterday's defeat. Time to answer the question from the top. 11,000 to 1 against, is the tank finished? Here's the surprise: no. And the reason is the same economics that created the crisis. First, nothing else does the tank's job. When you must cross open ground, take a position, and hold it against fire, 70 tons of protected mobile firepower still has no substitute. Drones deny ground, they don't take it. An infantryman still cannot walk behind a quadcopter. Wars still end with someone standing on the objective, and armor is still how they get there alive. Second, remember the counter-revolution. The same cheap precision boom that threatens armor is now producing its bodyguards, jammers that cut video links, cage armor that pre-detonates warheads, and soon automated hard-kill systems, defenses that physically shoot drones down, built on $2,000 Interceptor logic. Watch the battlefield adapt in real time, tanks sprouting welded screens, then electronic warfare pods, each layer an answer to last month's threat. Crude, absolutely. But crude adaptations that keep crews alive are how doctrine actually evolves from the field up, at the speed of a welding torch. The tank that survives this decade will move inside a portable bubble of counter-drone defense. What is dead genuinely, permanently, is a way of thinking. The blank check. The assumption that a platform can cost anything because nothing cheap can touch it. Every future weapon now faces the workbench test. What happens when this meets a $500 problem 10,000 times? Design for that answer or don't build it. And that test, honestly, is healthy. It's the discipline markets impose on every other industry, finally arriving at the arsenal. The nations that flunk it will field magnificent museum pieces. The nations that pass it will field weapons priced like the war they'll actually fight. The tank isn't dead. The unaccountable tank is. There's a difference, and the difference is the whole lesson. One sentence from this whole story will outlive the rest, so let's end on it. The future of warfare isn't a $100 million fighter jet. It's a million things that cost less than a PlayStation. That's the collapsed exchange rate in plain English. $400 against $4.5 million, $1,300 per armored kill, 50,000 airframes a month from garages, $5 million interceptors bleeding value against plywood, until $2,000 interceptors flip the board again. War has always been an economy. What's new is how fast the prices move and how brutally they punish anyone who stops doing the math. So is the tank dead? No, but the question was never really about the tank. It was about the ledger. Every weapon now lives or dies by its exchange rate, recalculated monthly, by enemies with soldering irons. America has faced repriced wars before and won them by outbuilding, outthinking, and outscaling the new arithmetic. Liberty ships, proximity fuses, now autonomous swarms. The tools change. The playbook American industry, aimed at the decisive number, hasn't. The next war will be won by the side whose weapons are priced right. The job now is making sure that side is ours. And if history is any guide, and on this channel it always is, betting against American industry doing that math has been a losing trade for over a century. Tomorrow, we break down another remarkable machine that's quietly rewriting the rules of war. Subscribe and we'll see you there.